If you're at all nervous to talk to air traffic control, this video will ease your fears. I'm talking to Marcus Miller. You might know him as PropHatCat, a popular air traffic controller that wants to make ATC more approachable for pilots. And he's about to share some great advice for student pilots and tell us one thing he wishes all pilots would stop doing.
What would you tell a student pilot or a low-time pilot that is intimidated to talk to air traffic control for the first or even 10th time?
At the end of the day, air traffic control is there to help you. We're there to support your goal of your flight. If you have questions or if you're not sure of what to say, just use plain language and tell us what you need. And if you need us to slow down, tell us. You can also say student pilot. That works too. But most of the time, if you check on and you are a student pilot, we kind of know you're a student pilot just by, you don't have that confidence yet, which is not your own, that's not your fault. The more you do it, the more confident that you get.
The elephant in the room that I want to address in a good way is your hat. And your hat, when I asked you, what do you want, new pilots to know? And you grabbed your hat and put it on. So I know there's a purpose behind that. Can you explain that?
It really started at Oshkosh about 3 years ago. I volunteered with our union to go up there and do pilot outreach. We have a booth there. We do like pilot presentations and things like that. And one of the big things that they said was, hey, we're trying to make pilots less intimidated by air traffic controllers. We want them to use the system that is there to help them stay safe. How can you do that? Well, I don't know. I'm a very intimidating person just to begin with. And whenever we go there, they gave us these like yellow vests that were like, ask me a question. I'm a controller or whatever, just kind of goofy. And then I found a propeller hat and I was like, what if I wore the propeller hat too? Right? Make it super, super like less intimidating. Maybe the pilots will laugh at me, sure, whatever. But it disarms them. And then it allows you to have this conversation with them without seeming intimidating or without seeming, scary or whatever. Because at the end of the day, you being scared of us is not helpful. You being intimidated by us is not helpful. And so how can we help you kind of forego that stereotype or forego that tepidness of working with us when at the end of the day, we just want you to be safe?
What do you encourage student or low-time pilots to do if maybe they only understood half your transmission, or you can tell they're really in the weeds, they're busy, or they didn't get all of it and they're starting to get overwhelmed? Like, what would you want to tell them?
Take a moment, take a deep breath, either write down what you heard or, do the first part and then just go on the radio and be like, hey, center, I'm relatively new. Can you give me that in chunks? Can you give me that in pieces? And a good controller should do that. And they should be clued in as well based on your readback. Okay, this guy needs a little bit more help. That's perfectly fine, but I'm not just going to overload you with that information because, again, that's going to make me slower by having to repeat it over and over and over again. Whereas I can be like, okay, November 123, turn left heading 230. Left heading 230. November 123, climb and maintain 4,000. Up to 4,000, right? One time makes it easier than November 123, turn left heading 230, climb, maintain 5,000, proceed direct, Canarsie enable, resume on navigation. All right, left heading 5,000, up to 230, and directs Canary. All right, November 123. That doesn't help anybody, right? And it makes everything slower. So if you need us to slow down, just say it. You may get some attitude, you may get some sass. You probably won't, though. And controllers should not be giving that to you if you're new and if they can tell you're new. And we probably can tell you're new because we've been doing this a long time. And all we can do is listen to pilots talk and talk back to them. So we're pretty good at understanding those cues.
What goes through your mind whenever a pilot asks you to repeat something, or even if it's 30 seconds later and they're saying, hey, center, can you confirm that altitude one more time? What goes through your mind?
I will never get mad at a pilot for confirming what I want them to do. I will never get mad at them for that. No controller should get mad at them for that because that's just ensuring safety, right? There are commercial airline pilots I talk to day in and day out. The instruction I give is November 123, climb and maintain flight level 230. Over and over and over and over and over again. An airline will check on and they'll be like, November 123, leaving 8,000, climbing via the SID. November 123, Houston Center, climb, maintain flight level 230. 230, November 123. 2 or 3 seconds later goes by. Hey, just verify that altitude for November 123. November 123, climb, maintain flight level 230. Okay, up to 23. Like, they read it back. There's 2 pilots in the flight deck.
Mm-hmm.
And they still verify because it's the important thing to do, right? If you don't understand a question, ask for a clarification. Don't just assume you remember what they said, because that's whenever you can get into the scary part of, ooh, was it 3,000 or was it 4,000? I don't know. Let's go to 4. Hey, what are you doing? There's a plane at 4,000. Descend to 3,000.
It's amazing how easy it is to read back something correctly and then 3 seconds later think,
Yeah.
what did I? It's like when you meet someone, you're like, hey, I'm John. Nice to meet you, John. 3 seconds later, you're like, what was that guy's name? Like you
I
literally just said it out loud. And you can't remember it.
I
And I
am
feel like it's similar with altitude readbacks. Like you
yeah,
just you get in the groove and you're like, all right, here's the heading, here's the altitude, boom, boom, boom. And you're like, wait, what was it again?
yeah.
So that
I'm
happens to me a lot,
I'm
more than
awful
I'd
with
like to admit.
names. Yeah, I'm awful with names. Goes in one ear, out the other.
So I know a lot of pilots are intimidated to talk to air traffic control, even en route, like for VFR flight following, because they're like, well, maybe for this leg, I don't legally have to be talking to air traffic control. So I maybe just don't want to, or I'm scared to, or whatever. So I'm just not going to worry about it. But you still see them, or most likely see them on your radar screen. Would you prefer to be talking to them? Like, how would you address those pilots that, it's optional? I don't know. So I'm just not going to call ATC. What would you like them to know?
You pay taxes, right? So you're already paying for the system. So why not use it? Like that's why we're here. We're here to keep you safe. If you have an emergency and then you have to reach out on guard number 123 engine failure, you now have to get a hold of somebody to help you. If you're on flight following, our 3 pieces of information that we need to know for an emergency is who you are, where you are, and what you want. And if you're already on flight following, we know who you are and we know where you are. Now we just have to figure out what you want. So it cuts down on, could be, seconds of time between crashing and landing on an airport, right? So with that mentality, I would appreciate if you talk to us. But I do understand that sometimes you're like, well, they make me fly out of my way. Yeah, we make you fly out of your way because there's airplanes here. That's the safe thing to do. There's airspace that you will be hitting if you're wanting to participate in the system. This is participating in the system. So you get the double-edged sword there, right? I would encourage you, especially if you fly out of an airport near a busy class Bravo, open FlightAware, open, Flight Radar 24 and see where the big arrival streams and departure streams go into and out of that airport. And don't fly there not talking to us. Look at the altitude stratums, look at the stuff, look at the descent via altitudes. Because if you're at, 12,500 over one of these fixes where our window for the descent via is 12,000 to 15,000, now you're right in the middle of that. Yeah, as long as paint doesn't touch, it's not a deal. But also, you're causing RAs for all these planes that are descending above you if you're just piddling around. And I feel like a lot of pilots are kind of lulled into the sense of security of their ADS-B receivers on their iPads and like, oh, I've got the ADS-B traffic. Okay, not all airplanes have ADS-B, We see all of the radar targets, including the ADS-B and the non-ADS-B people. So why wouldn't you want more awareness? Like, sure, you can see the main big guys, but, little Piper Cherokee that doesn't have ADS-B for some reason, he's still flying around, Military jets may or may not have ADS-B, So if I was flying, I would want to talk to ATC. That's, maybe biased because I'm an air traffic controller, but it's just safer, I think. And sure, it may be a little less efficient, but our duty priority is safe, orderly, and then expeditious flow of traffic. Safe is number one. And I think everybody would agree. Safety is number one, right?
If you want to boost your confidence with airspace and all the requirements that go with it, I want to let you know that I do have a set of private pilot flashcards that cover all of this and more. There's over 350 cards in color-coded sections that make it way easier to become fluent in all of this stuff. And over 9,000 pilots are using them, and you can check them out over at airplaneacademy.com/flashcards or scan the QR code on the screen. And I hope that they can help you in your aviation journey.
So let's jump into mistakes. What big mistakes do you see pilots make with air traffic control?
One of the big things, and I think one of my pet peeves, is a pilot changing frequencies and immediately checking on. Like, they don't even give it a second to do their check on. Like, just read the room. Like, change frequencies, listen for just a little bit, and be like, okay, maybe somebody's doing a readback on the other side of the sector, so you can't hear them, but the controller can still hear them. Maybe the controller's working multiple frequencies. Now, you wouldn't know if somebody was talking on the other frequency. That's not your fault or anything, but just give it a second. Give it 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. In our book, it says a aircraft is suspicious of being Nordo after 5 minutes. 5 minutes is an eternity in a flight deck, but you have up till 5 minutes to check in. It's not a race. It's not a race. And in the center, one of the things on the data block is a little Wi-Fi symbol, which we click on whenever you check on, and we take it off whenever you leave our sector. So we know if you're on frequency or we know if you're not on frequency. If we need to talk to you, we will reach out to you. It's not like you don't have to be like, oh my God, I checked on. Oh, okay, we're good. They know I'm here. Like, we know if you're not there or we know if you're there. And if you're not there, we're going to ask you.
What advice would you have other than, wait to check on, right? But like for people that are trying to get comfortable talking to air traffic control, you start to realize that like 95% of the things you're going to encounter with air traffic control is a pattern. And so the more you do it, you can start to recognize that. But how would you recommend that pilots get, build that confidence and get more comfortable talking to air traffic control?
What kind of got me interested in air traffic control to begin with was controlling on VATSIM, the Virtual Air Traffic Controller Simulation Network. And that is a great resource. It's free to fly on a flight simulator if you have one and talk to real people who are controlling your airplane. And most of it is pretty realistic. Like, you get out of it what you put into it, obviously, but it allows you the opportunity to talk to somebody flying in a place where there's really no judgment. It's a learning environment. So, and you're not wasting money, just like feel like flying an airplane and be like, oh man, got that call wrong. No, you just do the call and try again. And then, turn off the computer whenever you're done. Like, it's super, super easy, I guess, like a very, very nice, like, sandbox of where to play and practice this phraseology. Now, that's all volunteer, so sometimes controllers may be on, and sometimes they may not be. If you want something a little bit more, I guess, staffed, quote unquote, Pilot Edge is also another one that's mainly out in the West Coast centers and sectors, but they pay their controllers to control these people between this time and this time. And it's very, very realistic. And there's like different learning modules and different things like that. And so that I would say is really beneficial, especially if you're like getting ready for a check ride, or especially if you're getting ready for X, Y, and Z, and you want to practice this phraseology in a safe place for a relatively inexpensive, when you compare it to, the cost it takes to rent a Skyhawk or something, right? Listening to YouTube, listening to live ATC also gives you some great exposure. The more you can be exposed to the phraseology, the less it'll be surprising whenever they are starting to talk to you in the phraseology, right? So listen to live ATC and be the pilot. Come up with what you would say when the controller says it like this.
What would you tell the intimidated pilot when you're really busy, but they still need to talk to you, but they're freaked out because it feels like everyone's talking 100 miles an hour?
I think it's important to listen during those times for your call sign, because it's really easy to get complacent, I think, because there's so much going on that you're like, you just kind of shut down. But it's really important to listen, because if we have to call you multiple times, that just adds more to the frustration, I think. And most of the time, if it's busy, the next sector may not be as busy, or the next sector after that may not be as busy. So that if you have a question or if you need something, maybe just wait until you get to one of those controllers. Again, read the room. That's a big thing that I always say. Read the room. If you need something, if it's an emergency, if you need something, then yeah, speak up. Highlight it with like Mayday, 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 or Pan, Pan, right? Because that'll get us to shut up, and that'll get all the other planes listening to shut up too, because they're all also active listening, right? But if you're like, hey, it's a little light chop here at 8,000, how are the rides at 10? Just
Not the time.
not the time, right? Just write it out. But, we're getting extreme icing. Yeah, speak up. Let us know, because that's not good for anybody, right? Safety, number one.
If you could talk to a student pilot the first time, like right before they're about to contact air traffic control for the first time, and they're shaking in their boots, what does Marcus Miller want to tell them?
Just talk to them like they're your friend, talk to them like they're a neighbor or a parent or whatever. Just say what you need and then just go for it. I did a lot of theater growing up, and one of the hardest parts in theater is the 2 seconds before you step on stage. It's like the most, the nerves, the nervousness, but you use that as energy for your entrance, or you use that as energy for your first line. And once you say that first line, it gets easier. You just got to ramp yourself up to say that first line. If you think about it as, hey, this tower controller is not out to get me. This tower controller is there to help me. Here's what I'm going to be doing. I think if you reframe it that way, it'll make it easier. If you haven't gotten a tour of an air traffic control facility, it's pretty easy to do that. If you fly out of a towered airport, just call the tower. The FBO should have the number, or maybe you've gotten the number before. Ask for a tour. A bigger TRACON or a bigger center, you have to plan it a little bit out in advance. Rule of thumb that I like is if you call the flight data number for the tower or the TRACON, which is in the AFD, you'll dial the flight data number, which is a person. They'll answer and you'll be like, hey, can you transfer me to the operations manager, the operations supervisor who's on duty or whatever? Transfer you over. Hey, I'm Joe Schmo. I'd like to get a tour of the facility. Okay, cool. Would you like to come? So, and just come in and see the airspace that you fly through, or see what the controllers are dealing with, because it's otherworldly. And I think it gives pilots a better appreciation for what's going on behind the scenes, especially if they're relatively new, or even if they've been flying for a long time. It'll give them that ability to have a better understanding of what's going on.
If you want to see a lot of what we discussed in action, in the video on the screen, I take a flight and encounter about 90% of what you can expect in VFR flying. I think it'll help you, so I'll see you there.